Yo, what's good? It's your man 100 Grand Ross, where the rock never stops. Today I want to talk about why it is time for Karl Anthony Towns to go. If you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Look, let me be clear, man. Karl Anthony Towns, look, I've never been the biggest fan of his. I was always kind of confused that he seemed to give great defensive effort when he was at Kentucky and then got into the NBA and all of a sudden turned into this offensive force and stopped playing defense. It felt really weird. And then, of course, you see his star rising, and you saw the incumbent stars and young guys that were around him, where he had Andrew Wiggins and he had, early on Zach LaVine and, Lauri Markkanen and all those talented guys and Chris Dunn, and couldn't seem to get it to work. But you still saw Karl Anthony Towns' star rising, and he showed his talent, especially on the offensive end. And then they bring in Jimmy Buckets Butler. Jimmy Buckets Butler, coming from the Chicago Bulls, following Tom Thibodeau, his former coach, to the Minnesota Timberwolves. This team was officially in win-now mode. And this was when we should have seen Karl Anthony Towns really rise to the occasion. He now had a leader, a bona fide clutch scorer. He had an approved two-way defender who could facilitate, who could get him the ball, who could take pressure off of him in ways that Andrew Wiggins never had been able to. We see now that Andrew Wiggins is probably best as your third or fourth best option. And in that role, he's a star. But when he is the incumbent first option, it's not a good look. And it hadn't been a good look in Minnesota for the longest, to the point where I was suggesting that Andrew Wiggins needed to leave in order to create room for Karl Anthony Towns. But here is the catch. Karl Anthony Towns never stepped into the role as the leader and someone who could be depended upon. He essentially became an Andrew Wiggins 2.0. He essentially became another overpaid, extremely talented player in an organization that has not figured out not only how to build a winner, but how to maintain winning and how to create a culture and a standard of winning within its organization's tenure. You see, when we see Karl Anthony Towns, one of the things that I always am reminded of is that not all stats translates to winning. Not all scoring translates to winning. If you play dominoes or spades, they say not all money is good money. They say it especially in dominoes. You're over here nickel and diamond, but you're not getting the domino. Karl Anthony Towns is getting 20 points, 25, 30 points, and his team's not winning. His team seems to be able to win even when he's not there. And so when we begin to look at who Karl Anthony Towns is, I think it brings us back around to Jimmy Butler's comments on him. When we saw Jimmy Butler, probably one of the most competitive, toughest, fearless, two-way players who has everything you want from a player when it comes to the playoffs and winning. He is probably one of the biggest winners of his generation in the NBA when it comes to consistently winning. And yet, his comments when he spent that year in Minnesota was, these guys don't want to win. They don't have the dedication. They don't have the determination. They're not consistent. And they seem to be a bit aloof, meaning that basketball does not seem to be their top priority. And look, I am the one more than anybody else to say, look, a game, a sport, even your job should not be your top priority over your humanity. Karl Anthony Towns suffered tragedy dealing with the death of his mother due to COVID and a bunch of family members. And it was tragic. It truly was. And yet, it does not discount his entire career of struggling to figure out how to translate his talent to winning. And at this point, in this juncture, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, it's time to move on for both of their sake. Now, why do I say that? When we look at Andrew Wiggins, where did he find himself? With a contending team as a third or fourth option behind Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. Andrew Wiggins eats, and he eats well. He eats extremely well. He's not asked to be the leader. He's not asked to direct the floor. He's not asked to make sure the team is focused and locked in. He's not asked to do anything except play to his strengths, to be able to use his length and athleticism to defend at a high level and to be able to score, attacking the rim, getting downhill, hitting open shots, and every once in a while operate in the mid-range. He doesn't need to play make. He doesn't need to facilitate. He don't need to get anybody else involved. He could be the biggest black hole in the world, and that's exactly what they want from him. This is what Karl Anthony Towns needs. He needs a Golden State Warriors type situation. But here's the thing, there's not too many out there. There's not too many out there who have the luxury of finding a loophole within the salary cap that allows them to be able to sign such a massive contract as his. Because this is what happened with the Golden State Warriors. When the last collective bargaining agreement went through, they recognized there was all this money that the team owners had not been, notifying the players of. And they said, look, we have to give this money back to the players so we can either do it all at once or we can scale it. And they decided to scale it up from year to year. But even in the scaling, it was a massive spike in the salary cap. And that created a loophole, that created a gap that the Warriors were able to fill in, and they were able to sign Kevin Durant. And eventually that contract turned into D'Angelo Russell, which turned into Andrew Wiggins. Now, because there's not another team with that type of situation, you have to ask yourself, what type of situations are out there? And I've got one for you. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City, they have a team that has proven they can get into a playoff level of competition. They were in the play-in, in the second game with an opportunity to win. And what did they lack? A big man who can be physical, who can rebound, who can score on the interior, and continue to space the floor. Jalen Williams, who they just drafted, was not able to do that for them. In fact, they have everything but a big man who can do that for them. They don't need him to be a leader. That's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's their point guard. That's the other Jalen Williams. They have everything else they need except for a player of his talent. And this is what they also have. Salary cap. And a whole bunch of draft picks. The Oklahoma City Thunder have the ability to absorb such a massive contract, plug him into a position of need. Don't ask of him to do anything more than play to his strengths and potentially find success. But as always, what do you all think? Do you think the Oklahoma City Thunder are a good landing spot for Karl Anthony Towns? Do you think the Minnesota Timberwolves need to give him another chance, another year, and maybe see if they can make it work? I think his impending free agency in a couple seasons makes it even better for him to leave now than wait for the trade rumors to start spinning in the next couple of seasons. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Get at me in the comment section, and I'm out. Peace.